If you've ever watched or read Act 5 of Cymbeline, you might find yourself laughing out loud at how over the top it is. Shakespeare has to tie up dozens of loose ends, utilizing an absurd parade of deathbed confessions and long lost rings and random birthmarks. There's a fascinating theory of theater spectatorship at play here. For 2 hours or more, the audience has carried a heavy burden of dramatic irony. We know who is disguised, who is poison, who is lying, who is bad. Let's look at how this clunky scene serves as a psychological relief for us, the audience members, shifting the cognitive burden back onto the characters.
Except when he finally gets to all this stuff about all the evil she hatched and despairing died, again, this theme of consciousness. I wrote clunky here. But there's just this kind of like the truth will out, as Shakespeare as the line goes in Hamlet, and that's always the case in Elizabethan theater. Truth always comes out. In fact, arguably, we as audience members take as much delight in the complexities of plot as we do in the revelation of all of the characters realizing what has gone on. Because for us, this is sort of like a theory of spectatorship, but for us, we've part of the pleasure of theater, arguably, and comedy and romance, especially Elizabethan theater, is in the agony of the burden of the amount of knowledge that the audience has to take on that the characters don't. So while we watch a play, we also have to be like, oh, and he doesn't understand that the sleeping potion, in fact, is not poisonous because we know from Cornelius, but she thinks it's dead and he thinks that it's restorative. All of these complexities, and it's actually a burden is lifted off of our shoulders. This is going to sound weird, not in the resolution of everyone just marrying themselves off and bad characters, it's revealed that they're bad, but also that just people have the knowledge that we, the audience member, the spectator, the reader, has been burdened with the entire 2 hours traffic of this stage. I think that that's part of the resolution. Aristotle calls it reversals, but also the denouement, the unraveling, the tying up of knots, but also the unraveling of them and showing how everyone gains knowledge of the burden of all the knowledge that the audience had to know. Cymbeline's little speech about his wife is interesting. Shakespeare doesn't have much room. Mine eyes were not in fault, for she was beautiful. Mine ears that heard her flattery, not my heart. He doesn't say much. Oh, my daughter, that it was folly in me that thou mayest say. He addresses the daughter that he thinks is dead. Ironically, she enters soon after, as the note points out. And again, this sense of Cymbeline is not a very clever figure, right? And so you kind of need heaven to mend all the complicated knots of this, you know? But there's almost, I don't, it depends on the direction here about what you do with Imogen, but Shakespeare doesn't give a huge, explosive, show-stopping performance of Imogen and Posthumus coming together, but it is, he makes one final, I think, sort of masterful and beautiful move that has Posthumus furious with whom he thinks of as that Imogen's in disguise, and strikes her, presumably, possibly dead a second time. Still going though, 386. Oh, rare instinct. When shall I hear all through? Again, I think that's a laughing line. It's like, when the hell are we going to get through all this? You really have more for me? What are you going to tell me next? That we're actually, aliens have taken over the world? Anyways, this is a speech helpful to the audience too, who feels like, well, not all the incredible intricacies of all of Shakespeare's elaborate plots were revealed to all the characters. So you actually need a speech like this. This fierce abridgment hath it to circumstantial branches which distinction should be rich on. How parted your brothers? Serve the Roman captive. Your three motives to battle, all ordered dependencies, chance to chance. But nor the time nor place will serve our long interrogatories. See, Posthumus anchors upon Imogen, blah, 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 blah. So basically, just sort of like reassuring the audience. This is done in Roman theater too. Don't worry, all the characters are going to get together and they're going to have lots of talks about all of the plot, just like you are when you leave the theater and your friends like, I don't get it. What happened? What was there? Two false letters? Who was who? And how, it's kind of like I don't know how to describe it, but it's like the characters take on the burden of the interpretation of all of the crazy com- confusion of the play in some ways near the end. And it's sort of like reinforcing that theme. Don't worry, we're all going to talk about this in later scenes that, of course, we won't watch on stage, but imagine the characters all getting together and talking more about to absolutely, explain this.
So when Cymbeline turns to the stage and asks, "When shall I hear all through?" he's voicing the exact exhaustion and wonder of the audience. Shakespeare breaks the fourth wall to admit just how insane his own plot is. Do you think this scene is a masterful parody of romance conventions, or just lazy writing?